it's Casey, and today we're going to talk about what I'm going to be reading in September. So before we get into what I'm going to read in September, I want to briefly talk about how August went, which is that it went great. Normally when I film these things, I have to say like, oh, I'm filming this at this time, and so I've almost finished my TBR, but not quite. But no, I have completely knocked out my entire TBR like before the second week of August was over. August has been like my greatest reading month of all time. There was no question that I was going to get everything and all of my stretch goals done for August. It was great. So I'm going to do my TBR basically the same way. So I'm still going to be rolling dice. If you haven't seen one of my TBR dice videos before, what I do is I roll 2 die to give me a number 1 through 100, which corresponds to a prompt, and I have to find a book that fits that prompt. And I do this 6 times so that my overall required TBR has to be 6 books long. But for this month, I'm going to add a little bit of a spin to it, which is just that for September, I'm going to be doing something. It's not a readathon or anything, it's just something I want to do for myself. I'm going to be doing something I'm calling Series September, and for this I'm just going to try to actually finish series. So there is a video on my channel that's pretty old at this point, but I think it is just a list of all of the series that I was in the middle of at that time, and I don't think that list has gotten any shorter. If I have managed to finish some of those, all I've done is replace them with new series, and I think honestly I've done more starting series than I have finishing them. I used to go through and binge series straight in a row, and I have not done that nearly as much since joining BookTube. I have just been trying out all the new and shiny things. So for September, my goal is to really focus in and continue on series. So I'm going to do the prompts just like I always do, but what I am going to do is I'm going to try to find a book that fits that prompt that is a continuation of a series I have already started. So hopefully we can get this under control. But without any further explanation, let's go ahead and get into the rolls. Okay, new setup, so we'll see how this goes, but roll number 1. Oh, it was 42. I knocked it, but it was 42. So roll number 1 was a 42, which is a myth or a retelling, which is perfect because one of the series I wanted to finish out this month is the Lunar Chronicles. So I am going to be reading Winter by Marissa Meyer. This is the 4th and final book to the Lunar Chronicles series, which is a series of young adult sci-fi retellings. So the first one, Cinder, is a retelling of Cinderella. And in that one, it follows a cyborg who is a mechanic that ends up doing a job for the prince, and it proceeds much as Cinderella does. But the series overall is more about the politics and the tense relationship between Earth and Luna, and how all of our ragtag group of characters that we've been slowly collecting throughout these books fits into this greater situation. So Winter, I believe, is a Snow White retelling, and it follows a character that we have briefly met in some of the earlier books but haven't gotten a perspective from, so I'm very excited to do that. I think it's also the longest book, it might be almost 800 pages. I listened to the audiobook, so hopefully that will make that a little bit easier, but it is a long one. And as of reading Cress in August, I've decided that I do really like this series, and I'm very excited to finish it out. I'm always scared to read the endings of series because so often they don't end in the way that I want them to or answer all of the questions that I have. So I'm hoping that this one ends in a really satisfying way, but either way, that's what I'm going to be reading. Roll number 2. 52. Next, I rolled a 52, which stands for a dystopian, and I looked through my Goodreads shelf, looked through my physical shelves, racked my brain, and I don't think I am in the middle of any series that is a dystopian series. I don't think there's a single one that I've already started. So I'm going to do the opposite of what this is for, and I'm going to start a brand new series. And I'm going to read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So this is an adult sci-fi dystopian series, and I believe I am buddy reading this with Greg this month, and I'll link his channel down below. So this is an adult sci-fi dystopian series in a world where the class systems is divided up by color, with reds I think being the lowest. If I'm remembering correctly, the reds are working in these mines to help gather the materials so that humanity can terraform Mars. Now, we follow a red named Darrow who ends up for some reason going to the surface and finding out that Mars has long since been terraformed and colonized, and that the reds are essentially being used as cheap exploited labor. And so this follows Darrow's journey to infiltrate some of the higher levels of society and to take it down from the inside out. So it's kind of a dystopian revenge sci-fi story, and I'm very excited to read it. I've had this on my shelf for a couple of months, and I have wanted to get to it so badly, so I'm very excited to be reading this, even if it might technically go against the spirit of Series September. It is a series, so I don't like how intensely Pierce Brown is looking at me in that picture. Roll number 3.
25.
The next role was a 25, which is female protagonist, and for this I'm going to be doing something I should have done a long time ago. In fact, I think this book was on either last September or October's TBR, and I'm going to finally be reading A Close and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. So this is the second book in the Wayfarers series. The first book, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is up there facing outward because it's like my favorite book of all time. And I was so scared that the second one wouldn't live up to the hype that I just never read it. It's been a year and a half or more since I've read that first book, and I have not read the sequel. I just haven't done it. This is a series of adult sci-fi books that I think are more companion novels than a series, but I'm not exactly sure. The first one follows a girl named Rosemary Harper as she joins the crew of the Wayfarers. Now, the Wayfarers are a tunneling ship, so they basically punch wormholes through space. So the Wayfarer gets a very lucrative job to punch a wormhole from an area that is getting added into the galactic government. So this follows them on that basically year-long journey to get to the site that they have to punch from. And that book really just explores the relationships between the characters and their cultures and how everything goes. It's almost like slice of life moments as they go on this year-long journey. And I love it so much. It's found family in space. It's everything to me. It's amazing. This is the second one, and I think it's a companion novel, and it follows two female characters that we met in the first book but weren't like main perspective characters. I can't really describe kind of the plot of this one without giving a major spoiler for the end of Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, but I'm very excited for this one. I think some of the themes and the big questions that this one is going to explore, which again I can't get into, are going to be so interesting, and I'm so excited. I've heard some people say that they like this one more than the first one, and I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to handle it if that ends up being true. Like, what do I do at that point? We're finally gonna do it. I'm going to force myself to read it this month. It's happening. I swear, it's happening. If it doesn't happen, I give you all permission to publicly shame me.
Number 4. 25. Okay. Suspicious.
Role number 4 was also a 25, and so that is female protagonist again. So for that one, I'm going to be continuing on a slightly more recent series, and I'm going to be reading Rat Queens Volume 3. So this is a graphic novel series that I started back in June, I think, June or July, that follows this group of girls who are in an adventuring party, and this is kind of a stereotypical adventuring party in that they are loudmouth, violent, and drunk as hell. I gave the first one in this series 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I read another volume of it, I think this month or last month. I don't know. Time is meaningless to me at this point. But I've continued on this series and I'm ready to take on Volume 3. So I think the artist changes in this one and it's a different artist from here on out, but I am still really excited to read this because I do enjoy the story. Last volume we got a lot more information on the backstory of a lot of these characters. So hopefully that means we've done a lot of the setup and we can just kind of continue the plot from here. But this series was so far has just been a great time and I am so ready to continue.
Number 5. 72.
So next I rolled a 72, which is a book that will probably make me cry. And this, sadly, has never been an easier choice, and I have to. There's no other option, really. I have to pick Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. I'm not ready. It's gonna hurt me. Also, Robin Hobb gave me a break and we had a couple of 500-page books, but this one we're back up to 800. Chonky book. So Fool's Fate is the third, and I'm getting emotional just saying these words, oh my god. So Fool's Fate is the third and final book in the Tawny Man trilogy, which is the third series in Robin Hobb's greater realm of the Elderlings universe. And I'm not prepared. My heart isn't ready. Don't make me do this. So the Realm of the Elderlings starts with the Farseer trilogy, and basically the whole series starts with a boy named Fitz, who is the bastard son of the king-in-waiting Prince Chivalry. He is dropped off on the steps of the palace, and Prince Chivalry ends up abdicating the throne in shame. So Fitz is raised by the stable master, and eventually the king decides that he has enough ties to the royal family that he can kind of attend royal events and things like that, but not enough to have any legitimate claim to any power. So they decide to raise him up to be the royal assassin. And the first trilogy follows Fitz from age like 5 or 6 or whenever we meet him up until I think age 16 or 18, like somewhere in there. Then the next series in this universe is the Live Ship Traders series, which follows a completely different cast of characters. And then this one is set after the events of the Live Ship Traders, and it does follow Fitz and the Fool again. And most Robin Hobb books make me cry, especially the Fitz books. Robin Hobb likes to take her characters and put them through so much and I love reading about it, but it breaks me. And this one I'm so scared. Do you see this title? I'm not ready for it. I love this series. It's amazing. I can't wait to finish it. I'm gonna sob my eyes out. Fits the prompt.
And the final roll number 6. 35.
And the final roll number 35 gave me like the easiest prompt in the world for this, which is just an author you've read from before. So perfect for the spirit of series September. My plan for this though, I think, is to read Caliban's War, which is the second book in the Expanse series, which is an adult sci-fi epic space opera series. I read the first book, Leviathan Wakes, like back in March or February or something, early this year. I liked it a lot. It didn't blow me away, mostly because there were a couple of characters I had some issues with. But overall, as a series, I'm very interested in it, especially because some of the world building and the relationships between like the 3 main groups. If I'm remembering right, you have people from Earth, you have people from Mars, and you have people from like the asteroid belt, and there's like different politics between them, which I love. And I know the Expanse series is incredibly well loved, and I do really want to watch the TV show once I get a couple books in. It's also kind of big though. It's like about 600 pages, I think. Yeah, it's just under 600 pages. In the first book, we follow the crew of this spaceship who is on a shuttle when their main ship gets blown up. They figure out who did it and they broadcast that information, which ends up having a lot of political backlash. The other main perspective we follow is a detective who is looking for a missing girl. These stories end up kind of combining as events spiral quite out of control. And I have wanted to continue this series since I read it. I haven't read a lot of long sci-fi series, and I think this one is 9 books long, so I would love to go ahead and make progress on this so that way I can also watch a show. So this is the official TBR stack plus Winter, which I think is an 800-page book. So it's not a light one this month. This is kind of a chunky TBR. More than likely this is all I'm gonna have time to get to since September is the first month of me being back in classes. And I think page count wise, this TBR comes out to about how much I read January through March, so when I was in school before. So in theory, this is doable, but probably not much else. But that's not gonna stop me from trying. So other things I might read might continue on with a manga series called Princess Jellyfish that I started in August. There's also a book that I'm going to be reading for a secret TBR video that's coming out in a couple of weeks. So I have to read that right at the beginning. And then for the book club that I'm doing with my friends, I'm going to be rereading House on the Cerulean Sea because it was my turn to pick and I made them vote between Long Way to a Small Angry Planet and this one. So I will also be rereading this. And now that I'm thinking about it, this TBR is getting quite long. So to keep myself from making too many promises that I definitely can't fulfill, I'm going to stop this TBR here, even though there's so many books on here I'm so excited to read. August just really got me back in the reading groove, like harder than I've ever been before. So I'm so hyped to actually get to all of these books. But honestly, I think I should just stop at the 6 books I have to read for my TBR and the 2 other books I have to read for book club because I have to start classes. This is a mistake. I've made some choices. I'd love to hear what you guys are reading in September, or if you've read and have opinions on any of these, I'd love to hear it. But I think that's all I've got for you guys today. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading, I have a link to my Goodreads down in the description below. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time.